Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melee Via. I'm up here at Immortals Inc. with Mikey today.
What is up, John?
Well, we haven't talked spooky stuff in at least a week, right?
It's been at least a week. I mean, I've been kind of having withdrawals.
So I thought we would talk some Cthulhu.
Nice.
And there's another book that Carlos must have gotten in recently because I hadn't seen it on the shelf till I was going, hey, what are we going to talk about this week? And this one is one that came out in the fall of 2021. It's Cults of Cthulhu for the Call of Cthulhu game. This actually is an award winner.
Ooh.
This won the 2022 ENNIE for the best RPG supplement. So it won the gold medal for that. Yeah, so this is a pretty highly regarded book. And reading through it, I can definitely tell why. Two leads on this were Chris Lackey and Mike Mason. They have both done a whole bunch of stuff on Call of Cthulhu previously, including they both worked on Mansions of Madness.
Really?
That we talked about before.
Yeah, we talked about that a while back. Yeah,
it was a while back. Yeah, but another great book. Check out that video if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, great art for that one, I think. Right?
Fantastic art for that one. Fantastic art for this one too. I mean, just starting with the cover, I really dig the artwork we got going on there.
I kind of love all their artworks for these type of books. I mean, they're just always great.
Yeah, it's always really evocative stuff. So this book covers a whole bunch of stuff. A fair bit of it is background that would work well if you wanted to do any kind of horror game where cults might fit into it. But then there are some solid game mechanics that are going to work really well with Call of Cthulhu. So just kind of diving right into it. The first chapter on this book, a fairly big chunk of the book, is kind of a history of the Cthulhu cult. So it talks about the different groups that have worshipped Cthulhu throughout time and how those different cults were kind of organized and what their goals were. And it's presented in two separate parts. The first one is kind of an in-character presentation from a woman who came across some journals and some artifacts in the 1920s, and that covers from 2000 BC all the way up to 1928.
Well, it's got some history.
Yeah, there's a fair range there, but that does kind of set up a lot of different eras that you might be able to use this book in. So say you wanted to introduce a Cthulhu cult into, I don't know, a RuneQuest campaign or into a D&D campaign, there are options here that could fit really well. The next chunk of this is more modern era, and that covers 1945 all the way up to 2017. Again, this is presented as an in-character work, basically from a guy who found the previous woman's work, the same artifacts and writings, and just kind of said, here's what's happened since then. Really well done, fun, evocative stuff, cool timeline, gives you a lot of hooks for different things that you can do in different eras.
So you said this was a supplement, correct?
Yeah,
okay,
so this
perfect.
does require you to have the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game or maybe Trails of Cthulhu or another source book that's going to work well for Cthulhu. And in terms of game mechanics, it is very explicitly for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. The next chunk of the book presents 5 different specific cults. Each of these gets around 16 pages or so. The first one is set in 1890s England and talks about the Elevated Order of Morpheus.
Wow.
If I say Morpheus, what's the first thing that comes to mind to you?
Morbius.
Okay, sure. Yeah, bad movie. I thought you might have seen the Dream series where Dream's name is Morpheus.
Surprisingly, I haven't.
Okay.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Definitely check that out if you get a chance. It's also,
what'd you say it was called again?
Well, The Sandman is the comic book that it was based on. I think Sandman was the name of the Netflix series, and Dream is the main character of that, and Morpheus is his name as well. So worth checking out.
Kind of ruined it with Morbius. I know.
Worth checking out that series, but same name here, Morpheus, and some of the same kinds of implications, particularly tied up there. The next cult that's talked about is a Louisiana swamp cult set in Bayou country in the early 1900s, and that really kind of ties into the original Call of Cthulhu short story that Lovecraft wrote.
Probably smells good too, that whole cult in general.
You may be sure, yeah. Then there are 2 cults set in the 1920s. The first is the Society of Angelic Ones, and they're active in Los Angeles. And the next one is the Esoteric Order of Dagon, which is active in Innsmouth. So you kind of cover both U.S. coasts there. Two very, very different groups as well. And then the last one that's presented in detail here is The Church of Perfect Science. Starts in 1952 and just kind of covers onward into the modern era. And this is very, very much a Call of Cthulhu take on Scientology.
I was just about to say that. Dude.
Yeah, so the founder is a science fiction writer.
Tom Cruise?
Well,
or no, Tom
Ron
Cruise is
Hubbard.
just there. He's just there.
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard was the guy behind Scientology, and it's very much riffing on that. I had a great time reading it. I think that would be a whole lot of fun to work into a campaign.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. After that, the next part of the book is creating a Cthulhu cult, where they give you actual game mechanics. It's really a very deliberate mechanical path you follow through to design a cult that'll work well in the setting. It talks about the cult's methods, their motivations, the types of members they have. There are worksheets and flowcharts that you can go through to design the cult. And it works well.
You've heard of Build a Bear? Now there's Create a Cult.
Exactly. After that, the next chapter of the book is Cultists, Monsters, and Artifacts. So you get different cultist archetypes like, I need a butcher who happens to be a cultist. That kind of thing. There's blessings for cultists, ways they might manifest basically magical powers. There's a section of deathless masters, so the, undead entities that have been leading these cults for centuries. Hybrids and horrors, so basically the mortal-sized entities that your characters can interact with, and then a selection of artifacts and spells. This is a chapter with a whole lot of material that you can just look at it and go, ooh, I want to pick and choose this to drop into the campaign for this adventure, and just go through it as needed. After that, there's 3 adventures. First one's 42 pages, the second one's 50, and the third's 48. Not going to get into a whole lot of spoilers here. One is set in Victorian London, the second one is set in Los Angeles, and the third one is set in Chicago, modern era. Do all of these times sound like ones we mentioned previously?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, they might sound a little bit like the times those cults were active and places those cults were active. So yeah, these adventures leverage on the cults that were presented earlier in the book.
Yeah, let's say, sounds very regional. If you ask me.
After that, there's some appendices. You get inspirational materials, which is a pretty thorough bibliography, including some fiction, short fiction novels, and then some films and TV shows and other kinds of media that you can leverage off of. A selection of tomes. So, cultists need books, and here's some solid examples of traditional horror tomes that you can kind of leverage into your campaign there. And then the last bit is the handouts and maps that go with the adventures so that they're in a more accessible place than the ones that are right along with the adventure. From Chaosium, 370 pages, hardcover, full color throughout, again, lavishly illustrated, much like we've seen in other Cthulhu books. And the handouts at the back are really evocative with some great maps. And this is $50. Got it here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. or available online at immortalsinc.com.
Well said, my friend. Everybody go check it out. Thank you for watching. See y'all later.
Good gaming, folks.